as the market for used electric vehicles starts to become much more popular, almost to the point where the increase in used electric vehicles is rising faster than used gasoline vehicles, the old suggestions and advice about how to buy a used car needs some updates. And so here's a great article from Hot Cars where it talks about everything you should know before buying a used electric car. Getting your hands on one can be one heck of a gamble. Sounds pretty ominous to me. So let's talk about what they mean by all that. So you want to buy a used vehicle, you want to get rid of petroleum car, and whether or not you want to do that or not, that's your decision. But there are a couple things you should know before you consider buying any used EV, whether it's online, on the internet. First of all, is electric car going to work for you? And your daily routine will dictate that. If you have a very long commute and you can't charge at either end, you might have a problem. If you live in an apartment, you park outside where you can't charge at home, or if you live in an office where you can't charge at the office, that might be an issue for having an electric vehicle. However, if you have a shorter commute and you have a place to plug in at one or both ends, then that might be a good choice. Electric vehicle charging stations, you can usually find them in big cities, but if you're in a small town or places where there's not a lot of charging, you might have to rely on your home base to charge it up. Here's the biggest thing. A normal vehicle inspection is not the same on an electric vehicle. So obviously you want to check, suspension, brakes, things like that every car has, but there's no gas motor engine on an electric vehicle. So what is important? Yeah, you need a thorough inspection by a mechanic, but a lot of the mechanical components don't exist on an electric vehicle. But there is something that's extremely important to look at. And it's not something like you'll find on Carfax, because it'll detail damage and repairs, but it's not a substitute for an inspection by a trusted mechanic with electric vehicle experience. Because here's a cutaway of an electric vehicle. There's no engine, no transmission. Your drive line is right here. These two little metal cylinders, that's your drive motors. Everything is in there. This large plate is your battery. Those are the things that have the most probability of having expensive repairs. And even the electric motors, those are pretty reliable. They're pretty durable. They don't have lubricated parts. There's no engine oil. There's no reciprocating parts. Electric motors last a long time, let's put it that way. But the most important mechanical component is the cooling system to keep the batteries safe. The battery itself can wear out. We've talked about that before, and other videos get into that. But if the cooling system does not keep that battery at a good temperature, it can ruin the battery very quickly. And a battery can cost $8,000, $10,000, $15,000. We've seen some Teslas where it's $20,000. So if the cooling temperature is either too high or too low, it could dramatically reduce the efficiency and have an $8,000 plus expense to replace the entire battery system. Because the battery, not only is it the part that you have to replace, but to get at that battery, you have to take apart the car. Think about it. If this car was all put together and the body and frame and seats and interior and everything was on top of this, how do you get to that battery? Some you might be able to get out from underneath, some you might be able to pull out from the side, but the bottom line is battery replacement is heavy labor. Here is an example of how that works. There's an active cooler with fluid to cool the lithium-ion battery system, which has a lot of cells, and that system has to work. Some systems use just air, like a leaf. Most batteries have a pretty good warranty, but if for some reason there's an exclusion to that warranty, there's damage, improper maintenance, or if the vehicle was purchased used, there may be an exclusion because it's transferred to a new owner. So be aware that electric vehicles could be a significant opportunity for future or modern vehicle ownership. but the inspection and pre-purchase due diligence is a little bit different than a gas vehicle, and you want to take that into account when you are looking, shopping, and buying a used electric vehicle or EV.